What is up, guys? Prodigy here. Thank you very much for watching my video. And in this one, I'm going to show you guys the solar build that a lot of you guys have been asking for. With the solar build, you're going to be able to have unlimited melees. You're going to be able to have unlimited heals. You're going to be able to survive almost any amount of damage. Almost any, not all of it. You can be crazy under leveled in a lot of activities, including lost sectors, master lost sectors. If you guys are watching the video right now in the background, this is me being in a solo master lost sector, about 20 levels under leveled. I'm about 1586, I want to say, 1580, somewhere around there. And I'm doing 1600 content, and as you can see, I'm just outputting crazy amount of damage. I'm taking crazy amount of damage, and I'm not saying I'm unbeatable, and I can't say I don't die. I do die, but if you play it right, you can see that there's a crazy amount of damage being outputted, and also I'm absorbing a lot of damage. So I'm extremely tanky. I have a lot of heals. I have a lot of damage, and let's go ahead and show you guys this build. So before we get into the actual full setup of this build and the mods, I would like to explain how this setup actually works, just like the way I explained the void one in the process on how you can recharge your abilities. Same thing with the fire. There's a setup. Is not just put on the mods and then magic the build is going to start working for you. There's an actual process that you want to do. So the first thing for the solar build, where you really get your damage from, is starting off with roaring flames. Final blows with solar ability or ignition increases the damage of your solar abilities, and it stacks up to 3 times. So that is the main goal right there. We want to actually have 3 stacks as much as we can, and that's kind of where we get the damage start off. The second place where we get really good damage increase, and it's really recommended for this build, is your Synthoceps. Synthoceps, what it does, it buffs your melee range, and it also buffs your melee damage and super when you're surrounded. And to be exact, whenever you're surrounded by 3 targets, you have a 200% melee damage increase, and if you're surrounded by 3 targets and you have your super, you're gonna have a 50% bonus damage. So this, the arms, Synthoceps plus roaring flames, which is going to stack up your abilities, is going to do crazy outputted damage, and that is how you're going to be able to defeat higher level content while you're under leveled. This is how you're going to be able to do crazy amount of damage even though you're under leveled. Yes, a lot of you guys are going to ask me about Lorelli or whatever it's called, but you're just going to have the heal that we're going to have on this build, but you're not going to have the damage. Yes, Lorelli offers a much better healing, but you're just going to lack off of the damage from Synthoceps, and we can kind of replicate the heal of Lorelli and still output the crazy amount of damage. So again, really recommended to use Synthoceps for this build, and let's go ahead into the actual showing off how it works. So if you notice, when I'm right here standing in the middle of all these targets, you can see at the bottom left, Biotic Enhancements. So that means that my arms are activated right now. I'm doing that bonus damage on my melee. So if I throw one hammer right now, it's going to do a decent amount of damage, but it's not going to do the same amount of damage if I had 3 stacks. So right now, if you notice, when I get one hammer kill, at the bottom left, it should say, well, there's so many perks activated right now. You're not, well, actually you do see it, roaring flames. Roaring flames is 10 seconds. When I get another kill, it's going to say roaring flames times 2. And then when I get another kill, it's going to say roaring flames times 3. So now I have the most stacks of roaring flames, and is active for a couple of seconds. Now, whenever I'm surrounded by 3 targets, which I don't have here, and I use my hammer, I'm going to do the times 3 of roaring plus the 200% from the arms. So it's kind of hard to show off right here in lower level content, because again, this build is really meant for high level content. So again, you stack it up times 3. Right now I have biotic arms because I'm surrounded by 3 targets. You can't really see it because I have multiple abilities stacked up to help me with my healing and help me with my damage, but that is exactly what's happening. So now to kind of explain the mods, that's really it. That's really the build, is getting 3 stacks. Make sure you're surrounded by enemies so you can get the 200%, and that's really the setup for solar build. You're not really doing anything crazy. I will be explaining the mods so you guys can see exactly what's going on and how I get the stacks and all the crazy damage. So getting into the actual build for the Solar Titan. Regarding the stats, I really recommend 100% resilience number 1. Number 2, I recommend recovery, even though it's not really needed because you're going to be healing off your hammer, but still I recommend recovery for this build. And finally, your discipline. You might be wondering, what about strength? You really don't need strength because you're going to have unlimited hammers. As long as you pick up your hammer, you're going to have unlimited hammer. So if you really think about it, you don't really need this. Regarding your super, you're going to be outputting most of your damage through the hammer itself and roaring flames and the arms. So you're really not going to be using your super too much unless you lose your hammer, and I'll be explaining that in a little bit. And like I said, finally, discipline, you're not really going to be using it, but that's what I'm saying. Really, all you need for this build is resilience, recovery, and then leftover discipline. So getting into the actual mod, starting off with the helmet, I'm using a arc helmet. It doesn't really matter for this one, but the reason I'm using it is because you gain super energy on melee kills. I'm going to be using my hammer most of the time, so this is going to help me gain my energy. But again, I don't really need it for my super. I'll be explaining why I need my super energy later on with the perks that are coming down. Next off, we have rapidly defeating enemies with solar weapons or weapons that matches your subclass. You're going to create orbs. This is going to benefit me again later for another mod. And then we have become charged with light by picking up wells. So I get charged with light when I pick up well mods that matches my subclass, and I'll explain why we need to get charged with light. Moving on to the next perk, or the next armor piece, is the arms. And right here we said we're using the Synthoceps, and we already explained what Synthoceps does. And we have double focusing strike, and what focusing strike does, it gives us back our class ability. Whenever we use our melee, we're constantly using our melee, so constantly getting our class ability back. And then we have here high energy fire. This is going to give us I don't know the exact number, but a decent increase to weapon damage once we're charged with light. Not really needed, but it comes in helpful whenever we need to use a tractor cannon, whenever we need to use our SMG, whenever we need to use our sniper for whatever. So just being charged with light, it's really easy because all we have to do is pick up a well that matches our subclass, and then we become charged with light because of our primary mod that we have up here. Moving on to the chest piece, we have resilience mod, we have double resist for incoming arc and solar, and then we have an elemental ordnance, which gives us a well for defeating targets with our grenades. Not really that important, but it's just I don't really have nothing much to fill it up. It could be anything, to be honest. Elemental armament, it could be whatever you want. The one that's kind of important for high level activity, and this is kind of what was keeping me alive other than just restoration, is Well of Life. Well of Life gives you heals when you pick up elemental wells that matches your subclass. So since I'm on solar, I'm making solar wells through my grenades, through my melees, and this, whenever I pick them up, I'm getting charged with light, and it's also giving me a constant heal. On top of that, my melee ability, whenever I make, the actual, when I actually defeat targets, is going to make solar fire under me, and that's going to give me restoration. So in a way, I'm getting double heals the second I get a melee kill. Why? Because I also have melee well maker. A lot of my defeats are going to come from my melees, and almost every single melee is going to make me a well, and every single well is going to heal me, charge me with light, and give me bonus damage. So you see where I went with this build? You kind of get it right now. But not only do I have those exact mods on these specific armor pieces, but I also have here, like I explained earlier from the helmet, is that whenever I create orbs with solar weapons, right? I create orbs from using my solar weapons from the time I decide to use them. I get to pick them up and also get back grenade energy. And again, like I said, this one right here, you would switch this one up for whatever you really want, depending on what activity you're doing. But if you're doing high activity or high level activity and you need that heal, Well of Life. If you want to create more well mods, then just go ahead and go explosive well maker. But again, because I am under leveled in some of these activities lately, I am going Well of Life. Again, a lot of these mods are not set in stone. You can change them, you can move them around. Another very important mod for this build is the 1-2 finisher. A lot of you guys are going to be using your hammer for the first time. A lot of you guys are going to be chucking your hammer across the map, losing it, and then being useless once you don't have your melee ability. So what do? You just simply do a finisher. And that's why I said earlier, all the energy of our super. It's not really to get our super back, is just so we can get our melee back in case if we lose it. Because sometimes it happens, well, it happens to me a lot of the times where I'm trying to hit target, somebody else defeated it, and then it goes flying off the map. I throw it too far, I don't have too much time to go get it. So this comes in super handy with this build. Whenever you lose your hammer, you just do a simple finisher and then your melee is back. Here we also have reduces melee cooldown when you use your class ability. Not really that important, but I don't have really nothing else to fill it up with, so I just threw it in there. Could be whatever you want as well. So that is it for the stats, that is it for the mods, and for the final thing is the actual build. So small shield, strafe lift, throwing hammer, and fusion grenades. This can be switched up to whatever you want. I like to use fusion grenades because whenever you have that stack ×3, fusion grenades really do nice damage. Moving on to the aspect, we have Soul Invictus. This is very important for our healing and our rechargeability. And what Soul Invictus does is that whenever you use your whenever you defeat targets with solar abilities, you're going to create a sunspot, and this sunspot regenerates your health, regenerates your ability. It does damage to surrounding targets, and it's very good for you. Moving on to the next one is Roaring Flames. We kind of explain what Roaring Flames is. It allows you to stack your abilities up to 3 times, allowing you to do crazy amount of damage. Moving on to the fragments, we have rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignition generates orbs. Really not that important, but it's giving me a 10 resilience, which helps me towards my build. We have you apply more scorch targets. You apply more scorch to targets. We don't really need this one. We're gonna go ahead and apply your class ability recharges faster whenever you scorch targets. We're going to be scorching a lot of targets with our melee, so might as well get our class ability back. Our class ability can save us to, can help us to save ourselves, recharge other abilities, block damage, so it come in handy to have our class ability. Again, not that important. You can change it for whatever you want. Moving on to the next one is powered melee against combatants, make you and your nearby allies radiant. And what this does is just gives you 25%, I believe, bonus damage to your weapons, to your teammates, just for using your hammer. So it could come in handy when you need to kill a champion with your rocket, when you need to snipe a champion or whatever. All you need to make sure is to just use your hammer. But for the most part, you already know you're going to be throwing your hammer most of the time. So again, not that important as well. And finally, radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. This one is kind of important, so whenever you get into that fire and you get restoration, which is a thing that heals you for constant amount of seconds, it's kind of important to have it extended. So this with Well of Life, which as we explained is the mod at the bottom right side right here, gets to heal us a lot in when we're lower leveled in higher level activities. The weapons really don't matter. I was using tractor cannon just because it gives me a 30% debuff on enemies, and whatever setup you want. That is it for the solar build. I hope you guys did enjoy. Subscribe for the other builds, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.